So this is the audience for the evening. Joe Nickerson and my incredibly adorable dog, Andy Corby. My other two audience members last minute were unable to attend, so we'll be working with these two this evening. Good?
Yep.
So my name is Deanna Corby. Before I start my presentation, I'd like to talk to you about suicide prevention and awareness. I have been an active member of the American Foundation for Suicide for almost 10 years. I have participated in numerous community walks, 2 18-mile overnight walks, in hopes of raising money for education, for studies, research, in hopes of saving lives, preventing suicide, and bringing more awareness to people. I began my journey into suicide when I lost a close friend of mine when I was about 21 years old. He wasn't the first. Almost every year after that was just one after another. Suicide prevention awareness needs more funding. We need to open up about mental illnesses and encourage others to talk about their sadness. I know firsthand what it feels like to lose someone you love to darkness. I also know what it feels like to live in that kind of darkness. Right before my last 18-mile overnight, I lost my great-grandfather to suicide. I decided that year that was my last walk. I wasn't making any difference, and I just kept losing the people that I loved. I began school, and I became consumed in that, and then I began this project. And just last week, we lost my boyfriend's mom to the same darkness that took my grandfather. I know that my efforts may not have saved the ones I love, but maybe they have saved a stranger, and maybe that stranger is a loved one of yours, and your stranger may be my loved one. So, just a few facts on suicide. There is no single cause to suicide. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S. Each year, about 45,000 people die by suicide, and for every suicide there is 25 attempts. On average, there are 123 suicides per day. The rate of suicide is highest in middle-aged persons, white men in particular. 90% of people who die from suicide have a mental disorder at the time of their deaths. The number of suicide threats is far greater than the number of suicidal acts. Most such threats are not followed by action. However, when someone is killed by suicide, they're, I think I messed up there. They're likely to a threat or act before, so it's important to treat each and every suicide seriously, or every suicide attempt seriously. There may be false claims, but we don't want to miss one and lose anyone in the process. People who attempt or die from suicide are not weak or flawed. Is that Charlie?
Yeah, I think so.
It's my cat. That could be the third audience member, I guess. People who attempt or die from suicide do not want to die. They just want the pain to stop. It is hard to understand depression if you have never lived it, so please don't judge the people who have. Until you've stared down the level of depression, until you've lost your soul to emptiness and darkness, you don't get to make those judgments, and spreading negativity won't help the next person. In fact, it would only hurt others. Please visit afsp.org for more information on suicide prevention and awareness, and if you want to get involved in making a change. So, for my final presentation, I chose study section 4, case number 4, called No Job, No Hope. I would like to thank Officer Alan Laird of the Lawrence Police Department, Head of Restraining Orders and Domestic Violence, Captain Scott McNamara, Head of the Patrol Division of the Lawrence Police Department, and Officer Ryan Romsey of the Brockton Police Department with the United States Department of Veterans Affairs. I'd like to thank them for sitting with me and volunteering their time for me to interview them and get into their minds. They are all very busy officers that juggle work and family life. and I appreciate them taking the time out of their busy schedules in order to share their stories and knowledge with me, not just specifically for this project, but for my journey into the criminal justice system. So again, thank you for your time and thank you for your service. All right, so in this case study, we have speculators, we have backup police officers, and 4 actual named characters. Police Officer Keith Wade, Police Officer Luke, the lieutenant, and a man named Bert Jacobson. The scenario starts off with Officer Keith Wade getting a call from the subdivision on his beat that is primarily middle-class residents. As he makes his way through a field, he sees a group of people kind of just all hanging out, and he's wondering if that's where the issue is coming from. As he approaches the field, he realizes the group is gathered around electrical cable support tower. Keith can see that there is a service ladder with a man on it about halfway up. Keith immediately becomes upset. He's never dealt with someone in a suicidal situation before, and it's really weighing on him that someone wants to take their life and they could actually do it on his call. So Keith recognizes some of the people that are gathered and gets some information on what's going on. One of the men answers that it is a local man named Bert Jacobson, and that he's threatening to jump off. Keith immediately recognizes Bert just from having general conversation with them, not from any police work. Bert's not a criminal or someone that the police have to go and talk to. He just knows him from the neighborhood, from Bert's love of landscaping, and they would talk about that occasionally when Keith would be doing his rounds. Keith would have never guessed that he had any suicidal thoughts from any of their conversations that they had. Keith's lieutenant shows up and is also asking for information on Bert and why he would want to jump. Any information that he gets, he relays to Keith. He explains that allegedly Bert was laid off, and that might be the reason why he climbed the ladder and wants to jump off. The lieutenant advises Officer Luke to go to Bert's house to try to locate his family. Unfortunately, in this story, Luke is unable to do that. So the group of people that is gathering is growing with new people, and now we have the news coming, the media, news channel stations, radio stations. Some of the people in the group are encouraging him to jump. The lieutenant suggests that's exactly what they want, so they can put the blame on the police after the man does jump and die. And the lieutenant attempts to disperse the crowd. He also suggests that Keith be the one to try to talk to him, since they have somewhat of a positive relationship in the neighborhood. The media are starting to not only swarm the field, but now the police. Keith goes to his police patrol car and uses his microphone to tell Bert that he wants to help him and that he's coming up. The lieutenant tells him not to because it's dangerous and he doesn't want Bert to take him down with him. Keith doesn't care, and Keith believes that he can be more helpful if he goes up and it's a one-on-one situation. All of the other officers are throwing out advice from the sidelines, like don't let him take him down with you, use reverse psychology, tell him to jump and then he won't, or tell him anything he wants to hear just so he gets down. So Keith makes his way up the ladder, confident that the issue is a layoff, and even if it isn't, he still must try to help them, even if that means being 100 feet in the air when he hates heights. The issue here is there's a bunch of opinionated officers that all have different opinions, many inexperienced in suicidal situations, a growing crowd of spectators, and a very desperate man who is threatening to take his life. The dilemma here is how to approach the situation in order to talk to Bert and talk him off the ledge, literally. So, police are increasingly finding themselves intervening in situations involving suicidal individuals. Police are trained in all types of areas, such as domestic violence, child abuse, victims, criminals, and A large amount of different crimes. Many police feel more comfortable in dealing with law enforcement issues as they tend to be more predictable, related more to regulations and proceedings more than a call to a suicidal person. A major difficulty in training police to intervene in community social problems is for them to develop confidence in dealing with situations that go beyond their level of expertise. The first most important part of training officers with handling a situation with a suicidal person is knowledge. They need to be educated on suicide behavior, and before they can fully make any progress in a situation like that, they have to fully understand the issue. Police tend to be action-oriented and direct. This helps them cope with everyday offenders, conflict, and law enforcement issues. In these specific situations, they need to be patient, gentle, and reflective.